Hello, this is Three Rights. This will likely be the only video we make for this channel. Today we will be discussing the politics and drama influencer known as Bad Empanada. This is not a discussion of his politics, his broader online presence and interactions, or an in-depth analysis of who he is as a person. This is an observation made with limited information regarding the methods Bad Empanada uses in his live streams to express his viewpoints and political claims, as well as his methods for combating counterclaims and disagreements with others. We will also briefly discuss possible motivations for his approach to live streaming. Let's begin. I, like many other left-leaning individuals who frequent online spaces, discovered Bad Empanada some time ago. I first found his video essay channel and later his livestream channel. Something I noticed quickly on his second channel was that the text, "Full stream VODs are not and never will be available. Anything worthwhile from the streams will be posted as a clip." This seemed an oddity to me at the time, but I moved on. It was some time later, after seeing other left or left-adjacent creators who make unedited VODs publicly available be scrutinized for even the most mundane actions or statements that occur in those multi-hour streams, that I connected a possible motivation for Bad Empanada not uploading VODs being a mechanism to protect himself from overanalysis and clip chimping. However, as Bad Empanada began to shift the focus of his second channel from focusing on ideological enemies to those ideologically adjacent to him, using similar limited context or no context clips and excerpts from articles, sometimes providing no evidence at all, I began to wonder if there is more to why he remains VODless. And so a few weeks ago, I decided to watch one of his live streams to see what is being left out. As soon as the stream began, the claims started flowing. You could feel a loose sense of preparation, but it would not be apt to call the experience organized. From what I could infer, he began in what seemed to be a continuation of prior streams, accusing leftist commentators of being liberals in disguise and providing cherry-picked lines from a variety of articles and very brief clips that lacked greater context, often selecting clips from older videos in particular. I had already seen this in his edited downstream segments he uploads, but I was astounded that this was the full experience. I had assumed up to this point that his full streams would have a deeper analysis and more thorough evidence than the shorter videos. And it was at this moment I decided I would live post on Blue Sky my thoughts on what he was saying, partially to document some of the things that might not make it into one of his second channel videos, and partially to express my frustrations about what I was listening to. As such, my first post said something like, "It was today when I learned that Bad Empanada is a grifter, or at least uses the same tactics as grifters to prove his point. Baseless claims, out of context clips, and articles, speaking with an air of authority all the while." As he continued his rant, he moved on to New York's Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani. He said a number of things I disagree with. However, he reached a certain point where he said something that astounded me.
Mamdani is going to be probably a two-term mayor of New York City. Perhaps one, I don't know. I think it would be one. Only if he gets earmarked by the DNC to run in a more important position after the first term. One of those two things will happen. After that, he's going to go into national politics, like the House or something, But I think mayor of New York City to just another one of the crowd in the House or the Senate or something is kind of a downgrade. He will be like the new Bernie Sanders, I would say. Give it 10 years or so, and he will be the new Bernie Sanders, compromising on everything, talking like he's anti-establishment, while actually very much not being it. Regardless of what happens with him, eventually he's not going to be able to be the mayor of New York anymore, and he's going to continue in Democratic Party politics from there.
At face value, this clip is unremarkable for anyone who is familiar with Bad Empanada. However, I'm interested in discussing what was edited out. During this portion of the live stream, Bad Empanada made an interesting series of claims after saying Mamdani might be earmarked for national politics. He says that Mamdani will likely be either in Congress or, in the portion that was cut, set to be one of the next DNC presidential candidate, whether or not he's primaried out not being important in this context. For the attentive listener, you might understand the issue here, and so did his chat. When it was brought to Bad Empanada's attention that Mamdani is not a natural-born citizen of the United States and therefore cannot run for president, he paused for a moment and then swiftly doubled down with his claim, laughing at his members-only chat for thinking that the US government cares about its own rules, stating with confidence that they had already ignored the rule in the past, citing the presidency of Barack Obama. Obama was born in Kenya, he proudly stated, continuing on about how Americans are delusional to think their government cares about the Constitution and the amendments to it. It was then I made my second Blue Sky post at Bad Empanada. I said that Mamdani and Obama are completely different situations. Obama is a natural-born citizen of the United States and therefore was eligible to run for president. Mamdani is an immigrant and therefore has no eligibility to run. I didn't even think to include the fact that Obama was born in Hawaii, not Kenya, and that Bad Empanada had fallen for a Republican conspiracy that was propagated during Obama's 2008 run for president, and apparently he hadn't figured out the lie in the 17 years since. Thankfully, the chat corrected him again, though even if Obama had been born in Kenya, having one American parent would have still allowed him to run for president, as it would still qualify him as a natural-born citizen. Now, editing out these mistakes creates a far more cohesive and concise experience for viewers. However, it also creates the illusion of being an authority on the topics he speaks on. Many of his fans believe that Bad Empanada never misses or has no bad takes, and only ever provides valid criticisms. While this could easily be explained by the parasocial nature of the relationships between influencers and their viewers, it would be irresponsible not to consider the connection between the image of himself he provides through his clips versus the reality of his apparent lack of knowledge on a number of beginner-level facts about the US federal government and one of its former presidents. The implications that can be drawn from this moment are jarring. How much does he really know about what he's saying? How well read is he on the topics he discusses? He speaks as an authority on a swath of political and historical issues, posing as an intellectual and even a gatekeeper of leftist ideology. But what is he really? After this segment, he took a short break and returned with clear frustration. He began to rant about how it was bizarre that anyone could accuse him of being a grifter when he does the exact opposite of what grifters do. My posts had been seen. He then provided a definition for grifters.
And rather than because they like what they have to say. The way that you grift is you foster audience overlap with as many people who are like even remotely similar to you as possible. That's how you grift. You foster this audience overlap and you try to make sure the oppositions are as aligned with this group of people as you can. And you never criticize them. You never fundamentally challenge them, and you collaborate with them as often as possible. You defend each other. You make sure not to step on each other's toes. This is what someone like Hassan Parker does.
I clarified in my next post that I found it amusing that Bad Empanada was assuming me to be a Hassan fanboy. I also agreed with his description about grifters and what they are, or at least I did at the time. I even made an additional post re-emphasizing that the primary purpose of my initial post was to draw a parallel between Bad Empanada's approach to proving his points to that of a grifter. I stated that he comes to a conclusion ahead of time and tries to find anything he can use as evidence to support it. The exact same approach as any well-known grifter. A more honest and less biased approach would be to form a hypothesis, thoroughly search for and cite as much relevant evidence as can be reasonably done, including points that counter your argument, and working toward a factual conclusion which may or may not support the initial hypothesis. Upon further contemplation, I find his definition of a grifter to be both very specific and very lacking. In fact, I began to notice other ways in which he mirrored the tactics of grifters. Whenever he makes a claim without evidence, if he is challenged on the claim, he complains that
it's always the same sorts of things. Like they can never form a rebuttal to anything that I'm saying. They can never actually explain how I'm wrong. All they can do is like reply with some variant of, you shouldn't be allowed to say that. You shouldn't talk. Stop talking. This makes me uncomfortable.
even though the burden of proof still rests upon Bad Empanada. He treats himself as an authority who has no need to prove his claims, but requires thorough proof from anyone who challenges his words. Additionally, any criticism he gives is,
Actual valid criticism.
but every criticism against him is immediately dismissed. He says that
It is the most insanely progressive liberal identity politics, worthless therapy speak hug box you could ever imagine.
and yet reliably streams with members only chat turned on, creating his own hug box to exist in. He won't own up to a mistake, as illustrated earlier with his commentary on Obama and Mamdani. Instead, he doubles down, and if that doesn't work, which it didn't, he hand-waves the issue and pretends it never happened. Lastly, grifters commonly try to identify themselves with groups they are not part of in order to garner more support. One of the last things Bad Empanada was talking about before I left the stream was the US and the direct, long-lasting damage it has caused to the global south. I have no issue with this statement at face value. However, in a brief moment that was either removed as part of editing the clips, or that I just couldn't find because of the moment's brevity, Bad Empanada clearly refers to himself as part of the global south. The dishonesty of this may not be evident at first, but Bad Empanada is an Australian of European descent, and by that very definition is not a member of the many peoples who have been violently oppressed by the imperialism of Western nations. He moved to Argentina for reasons unknown to me of his free will, something most Aboriginal Australians will never have the economic freedom to experience. Even the majority of Argentinians are descended from European immigrants, with the remaining members of indigenous population often facing discrimination when their ancestry is discovered. And so he effectively has no claim to being part of the global south in his current location, regardless of how the classification is applied. And so I left the stream, leaving a final post in which I encouraged Bad Empanada to take a more honest and scientific approach to his commentary and analysis. And that was the last thing I did on Blue Sky. Just last week I received a message that my account was suspended for reasons related to the platform's trust and transparency policy with no other specifics. I appealed the decision, of course, but up to now nothing has changed. I don't know precisely what happened, but I do know this. I had very few posts and comments that I contributed to Blue Sky, with most posts being in relation to the genocide in Gaza. Some comments were in opposition to other users on Blue Sky who were denying the genocide, but were some time ago. Logically, one could easily infer that some of Bad Empanada's fans, or Bad Empanada himself, were none too fond of my thread calling out the poorly informed and sometimes bizarre takes that he made on that stream. Or perhaps the fact that I was documenting something that is intentionally not kept in digital record as a VOD. Either way, this illustrates the final point of how Bad Empanada resembles a grifter. His fanatical fanbase. He intentionally removes anything that would undermine his image as a voice of authority to his viewers, and in doing so fosters a group of followers who aggressively believe anything he says with no further analysis, and will go out of their way to attempt to silence any opposing voices. I make no claim whether or not he intentionally directs his followers in this way, but his own behavior towards others online most certainly emboldens his viewers' actions.